Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Not really back, considering this is my first real video uploaded onto this channel, to the Lonely Leaving Cert student channel. And the first thing we're going to be doing is looking at Eileen Ni Quilináin. So we're going to be doing something from English. Eileen Ni Quilináin is a poet, and how these episodes are basically going to work, my poetry episodes, is my first episode will be reading the biography of the poet, and that's about it. Then the subsequent episodes will be looking at each of the poems that are in my poetry book and reading the poem, giving what the book says about the poem, then giving you my own personal opinion on the poem. And you can use anything, all of this in essays. English is one of the subjects that I actually do very well in. So I think this is one of the videos I feel most comfortable making about the Leaving Cert in general. So, to begin. Eileen Ni Quilináin was born in Cork in 1942. She was a family of 3 kids, born to a guy with an Irish name, Cormac O'Quilinain, professor of Irish literature at UCC, and her mother was a children's author. She grew up in a very ooh-ah, up-the-rah, Republican-style household. Her father fought in the War of Independence and was captured during the Civil War. Her great-uncle was Joseph Plunkett, one of the guys that signed the Proclamation of the Irish Republic, who was executed in Kilmainham jail at the end of 1916, the Rising and everything. This kind of instilled a very nationalistic flavour into Ni Quilináin, which you may or may not like. She described herself as a Gaelic-speaking female papist whose direct and indirect ancestors, men and women, on both sides were committed to detaching Ireland from the British Empire. The thing that disturbed me most about that is papist. Sure, there's a lot of logic in this woman's brain. They were a bilingual family, Irish and English. She had 6 aunts, 3 of whom were nuns. She remarks that the ones that went off to live in convents had more interesting lives than the others. Again, very religious person. It says then Ni Quilináin was then educated in a convent, and then she attended Oxford. As a young woman, she shared her interests in poetry with some like-minded young poets, including Pierce Hutchinson, Michael Hartnett, and some others. In 1966, she won the Irish Times Poetry Award for Ars Poetica. Encouraged by this success, she published her first poetry collection, Acts and Monuments, in 1972. This won her the Patrick Kavanagh Award. In 1975, she co-founded a literary magazine that was named after her cat. It focused first on publishing Irish and international poetry, but later began to feature criticism and fiction. In 1975, she published her second poetry collection, Sight of Ambush, which received the Irish Publishers Award. Her most recent publications are The Girl Who Married the Reindeer in 2001 and The Sunfish in 2009, which won the 2010 International Griffin Poetry Prize. She is regarded as one of Ireland's most accomplished contemporary poets. Her poetry can be opaque and enigmatic, mysterious and indirect, yet with time and consideration it unravels, and the mystery, while never fully absent, engages us and draws us into a folkloric world that collapses the distance between the past and the present. She lovingly records nature and transforms it with a powerful imagination. She contrasts stillness and motion, life and death, and always with an air of secrecy. According to one critic, Eileen Ni Quilináin does many expert things in her poems, but does them so quietly that often she remains unheard except by those who have returned many times to listen. As readers of her poetry, we need to listen, to give ourselves up to each poem's voice and allow ourselves to be led to a strange and mystical place. She also spoke a lot of languages. My opinion on her poetry is that it's a bit shit, really. A lot of her poems are very personal, and a lot of her personal stuff is very religious and very nationalistic. That doesn't fit with me, really. That's more of my own personal thing. But on top of that, a lot of her poems just don't gel with me. I just don't like them. I just really don't like them. I'll get into that more when we go by the poems on an individual basis. And there's another thing here on social and cultural context that I am going to read. When in Oxford, she spent a lot of time reading religious sermons and wrote her thesis on an Elizabethan satirist. She admires the poets of the English Renaissance. These poets provided different ways of using imagery and language. She was influenced by this guy called Richard Crawshaw, which you can see in the second voyage. In the historical sense, Ni Quilináin acknowledges Constantine Cavafy, who was a Greek poet who wrote about historical figures, real or imaginary, who played a role in Greek history. He had an immense knowledge of history, as is clear from his poetry, and in 1911 he wrote a poem called Ithaca, which gives an account of Odysseus' journey home. In Kilcash, we can see a similar determination to revive and recognize Irish poetry, and in the second voyage, Ni Quilináin also uses the figure of Odysseus and explores a psychological journey. And a lot of her poems invoke historical figures, which I like because I like history, but oftentimes the view of history is very warped, I guess. And I'm going to skip some of the other things because a lot of them are not really relevant to anything you're going to be doing in essays. So, a quick overview of the timeline of her work. She was born in Cork, graduated with a Master of Arts. She became a junior lecturer in English at Trinity College, wins the Irish Times Poetry Award for Ars Poetica, receives a Bachelor of Letters degree from Oxford University, publishes her first book of poetry, Acts and Monuments, and wins the Patrick Kavanagh Award in 1972. In 1975, she co-founds the literary magazine Ciphers, and publishes Sight of Ambush, which received the Irish Publishers Award. In 1977, publishes The Second Voyage. In 1978, she gets married to her husband. In 1981, publishes The Rose Geranium. In 1983, her son was born. In 1989, publishes The Magdalen Sermon. In 1990, her sister dies. In 1992, she wins the O'Shaughnessy Poetry Award and from the Irish American Cultural Institute. In 1994, publishes The Brazen Serpent, and her mom dies. In 2001, publishes The Girl Who Married the Reindeer. In 2008, publishes Selected Poems. In 2009, publishes The Sunfish. In 2010, won the International Griffin Poetry Prize for The Sunfish. Next episode, we will be looking at Eileen Ni Quilináin's first poem in this book that I have, Lucina Shinning in the Silence of the Night, or Lucina Shining in the Silence of the Night. Whatever you want to pronounce it, I think it's a stupid title. And with that, please like and subscribe. How do you like Eileen Ni Quilináin? Please leave comments in the comments below. Help out other lonely Leaving Cert students studying on this long, hard Easter break. And if you're in the Leaving Cert class of 2019, and I don't even know if Eileen Ni Quilináin's on the course, say how better or worse the poets on your course are than Eileen Ni Quilináin. Try and check out some of my other videos, if I've even uploaded any of them by the time you're watching this, and good luck getting the results you want.